Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the ReinventED Legal Business, the case study series. We are delighted to see you here, and even more delighted to welcome Helen Mckay, who is the founder and director of Juno Legal. For those of you that don't know very much about Juno Legal, why not? And you're going to hear lots more about it now. It is a business that has a regional reach through Australasia, and Helen's going to tell you exactly what it does and how it came to being, and really tell you the Juno story. As you know, this series is all about looking at how legal businesses are different today, how they've evolved, and the stories that go behind that, whether they're successes or they are failures. And we always learn a lot from failure, and I know you're going to kind of hear about perhaps that very candid disclosures as we go along as well. So with that having been said, Helen, we're just delighted to welcome you back. You're a great friend of the Centre's, and we love having you every time that you're with us. On that note, I will be sitting in the background, but I'm going to go away, so my video will go off. I will go on mute, and I'll hand it over to you. Helen, you're most welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terri. Kia ora koutou, everyone, which means greetings and hello. I'm really excited to be sharing our Juno legal story with you today. As you can see, I'm in our meeting room at Juno HQ, which is also our greenhouse for our plants. When Terri asked me to share a bit about our Juno legal story, to do that I really need to share a bit about my story because it mirrors what we see happening in Juno. So I started, it's a bit of a zigzagging path. I started with degrees in law and commerce about 25 years ago. And I thought I wanted to be a criminal lawyer. And after interning as a summer clerk for a criminal lawyer, I realised it was far too gritty for me. So instead I went in the complete opposite direction, and I went in-house at a large, well-run energy company called ECNZ. And as a junior lawyer, I had a great time. I was flying around the country selling small power stations, really getting in with boots on the ground and learning what it meant to be an in-house lawyer. And one story that I love sharing is when we were selling a small power station, well, small, but still a large amount of money, of course. And I was in a deal room. The transaction was due to close, bids were supposed to be in, and there was panic stations because the bid that we'd been expecting from our preferred bidder hadn't come in. And I remember so clearly there's lots of swearing and storming around in the room, and I sat there very quietly as the most junior person in the room and the only female, and reading through the deal terms quite quietly, thinking, I'm pretty sure we've got the right here to vary the deal terms. We could accept a late bid. And I tentatively raised that, and everyone ignored me, and I thought, no, it can't be that simple. I must be missing something. Of course, about 45 minutes later, in more panic, the major partner, or the partner of a major law firm, came storming through the room. And of course, he was feted like a champion because he came in and said, it's fine, we can vary the deal terms. And you know, he saved the day. And I remember there and then thinking to myself, actually, you know, being the in-house lawyer is about trying to find your voice and making sure your voice is heard. And I promised myself then that I'd never let my voice not be heard and never see that the solutions had to lie externally. So after a couple of years doing that role, I took off to London and worked again in-house in a couple of big companies, Nestle and Novartis, had a great time in London, came back to New Zealand, and I was offered two jobs, one in a major law firm and one in-house. And by that time, in-house had really stolen my heart. So I went back in-house and had a fantastic 6 years there in both legal and non-legal roles, really learning about business, learning about leadership development. While I was there, I had two children, and I transitioned back to work seamlessly 3 days a week and then 4 days a week. And then after a few years, it was time for a challenge. And so I stepped up into being the general counsel in a major listed company and really got thrown in the deep end, did an IPO while I was there, and really got to know what the pressure of being a general counsel is. I guess the tipping point for me was when I had my third child. And the CEO, who was pretty macho, told me that I could only come back to work if I came back for 50 hours a week. That didn't work for the sort of life I wanted to lead and the sort of parent I wanted to be. So I just finished a term as the president of the In-House Lawyers Association in New Zealand, so the New Zealand equivalent of ACC Australia. And I was invited to be their inaugural CEO, which I did on a 20-hour-a-week basis. And what I really loved about that is it really gave me a view of the science of the in-house legal profession. You know, everything was changing. The world of work was changing. The way that companies resourced was changing. So yeah, it was a fantastic opportunity, and it gave me the chance to balance my life with my legal career. So in New Zealand, the in-house legal profession had grown to be about 25% of the legal profession. And instead of it being like a law firm in-house, it was becoming much more of a professional corporate discipline. And you know, as we all know now, as you know, the rise of in-house has really seen it being really seen as a very valid and very sort of sought after route in the legal profession. But what I did see was there was a couple of challenges on both sides. And so on one side, you had lawyers who really wanted to access a more flexible way of working. You know, the legal profession being pretty binary. You can either work all the hours in the world or you can't have any access into the profession. And I saw a lot of people, particularly women, who'd been really shut out of the profession. And the other thing that was changing was the ways that we work. So the old models of recruitment and resourcing weren't working for legal teams. You know, those working in an agile way, you know, or they were under rapid development, they had a project team form one week. They needed to get resource in immediately. And so there was a real need on both sides, both demand and supply. So happily, when I was ready to move on from running Islands, we created Juno Legal. So we're a new law firm. We have 21 lawyers and 2 legal professionals. We are across Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch in New Zealand, and we do a real range of work. We see ourselves very much as an adjunct to the in-house legal profession, but also a B2B law firm that's supporting mature startups, supporting government businesses and a whole range of entities. So, you know, I guess for us, it's been, you know, a fantastic journey. We're 3 years old now and still growing. Obviously, this year's been an interesting one, but we're finding the demand for what we do is even stronger. We tend to get used, or, you know, our clients tend to be also other collaborative, quite new age businesses, or those that understand what we offer. So the likes of Coca-Cola, Dyson, you know, Weta Workshop, etc., Icebreaker. So they're very much used to pulling in resources they need to. We have 5 service offerings. So one that we call the dedicated in-house legal, which is familiar to so many of you, where you literally parachute a lawyer in for a resource gap or a project or a transaction. The second is our managed legal service offering. And so what we find in a number of in-house legal teams is they really need to carve out 10 to 15 hours a week of capacity from their overloaded team. And so we pick that up for them, and that might be in specialist areas like ICT or just general commercial contracts. And we often find sort of smaller businesses, sort of mature startups, might be on the road to needing their first in-house lawyer, but they're not there yet. So they might pull us in 5 to 10 hours a week to be their virtual GC. Other work that we do and that I love doing is we do a lot of strategy and design work with in-house legal teams themselves, helping them figure out how to get the best value out of their legal resource. And that work's really rewarding. And the fourth thing we do, Matt Farrington is our ICT lawyer and legal technologist, and he works with in-house legal teams and some law firms as well, helping them unlock value from their technology, whether it's using existing systems or whether there's something out there that might help them. So we're technology agnostic. We don't partner with or recommend any particular system. And the fifth category we call bespoke, because it's where everything else goes. And we often ask ourselves, is this something we do when we get asked to do some work? And And really we figure it out as a team. Is this the work that we're best suited to do? We're really clear what work suits us and where our sweet spot is. And we're very happy to refer work on if we don't think we're the best people to do it. So this is our brand promise. So this is the promise that we make to our clients when they engage us. We are very confident we have the best of the best in-house lawyers. So all of our lawyers are 10 years plus PQE, no juniors. Most of them have been general counsel, senior legal counsel. Most of them are out of top firms before they moved in-house. So they've got great training, but also that great experience. Outstanding service. We know that we only succeed when our clients succeed. So we're really dedicated to giving our clients the very best of what they need. We are adaptive, so we give our clients as much of what they need. We actively look for ways to save them money if we can, and figure out ways to connect them with people who may have better solutions for them. Fresh eyes for us is about new ideas, new technology, new solutions, and we apply the same principle to ourselves that we help our clients with. 100% human. We are really clear, our lawyers show up to work every day in different environments, but they always turn up as themselves. So 100% human and honest and open. And sometimes coming in, we can be that little bit of challenge that a team needs, that just to maybe see the world a bit differently. And finally, our last promise is that we are generous and open. So we really believe in sharing what we do. So for example, if I do a legal services charter or a commitment with an in-house legal team, I'll often ask their permission if I can share it more broadly, whether it's through our newsletter or on our website. And that way I feel like we're sort of lifting up the whole in-house legal community. So open source is very much part of our ethos. This is a slide that people say, why have you got a cow? One of our mottos internally to ourselves is there are no sacred cows for us. So we see all of our systems and our operations ourselves as very much iterative rather than fixed. And I know that's not necessarily a law firm mentality, but we still see ourselves very much as a startup. So for us, the only fixed principle is looking after our people and looking after our clients, and everything else is very much iterative. So we keep a bit of a roadmap of what we want to improve, and we keep working away at it. For example, we have recently been focusing on our client proposals and onboarding our clients. And we've moved to a new system. I think it's an Australian system called Practice Ignition, which we're embedding, and we're just working out how to integrate that with our CRM, HubSpot, and then whether we bring our other sort of content marketing system, MailChimp, into HubSpot. So really keep moving forward, I guess, and not get too choked up by having these big legacy systems that we can't move quite freely. Our matter management and our very limited time management system, we try not to bill on time, but we do it in a sort of limited way. Our legal technologist, Matt, he actually built himself on a low-code platform, and so that's fantastic. It's completely wired just for us. In terms of the team itself, we try to operate very much like a fully flat structure, so no demarcation. We're all called Juno lawyers. I have a little bit of an extra title on top, but otherwise we are very much egalitarian. We had a team session for our whole team last month, and let's be honest, it's been a pretty exhausting year for all of us, and I wasn't feeling that I had anything new to share, so instead we set it up like a bit of a Dragon's Den session, and we divided the team into three. So one group worked on client experience, one group worked on team experience, and one group worked on BD and marketing. And so they worked in their subgroups, and then they came back and pitched to the rest of the team just a couple of key new ideas, new initiatives. And so in the new year, we'll pick those up and run with them. So it's a great way to get people thinking creatively. So I think we see our brand promise very much that we're going to be free thinking and adopt new ways of working alongside our clients. So in the words of Matt, we have to eat our own dog food and make sure we're doing that as well. Probably a little bit controversially, all of our teams, so both the lawyers and the other legal professionals have complete autonomy over their own schedules of work. And what I mean by that is they determine how many hours of the week they want to work, how many weeks of the year they want to work, and that can be anywhere between 10 and 40 hours a week, between 8 and 12 months of the year, or preferably not 12, everyone needs a holiday. But I really work hard with each person to figure out how do they want to live their life, and then what have they got to offer clients, so they're going to give them the absolute best service they can. So our lawyers work either from our headquarters, from client premises, from home. Really, it's up to them and the client to work out what's going to work best. What else? I guess we really believe we should put our people first, and we really do put our people first. And I know that's a bit of a cliche, but I really believe in it strongly. So apparently Steve Jobs always used to say that you must put the client first and the customer first, and their needs were paramount. I have the opposite view. I believe, Richard Branson always says you've actually got to put your people first. And I think the profession of law is one where, lawyers are so hardworking, they're such over-deliverers that I see my job sometimes is to actually keep them safe from their own wish to over-deliver to our clients. And I really think a lot of law firms need to think more about how do you keep your people protected and then allow those people the freedom to serve clients in the best possible way. So in terms of our team, this is our team as they are at the moment, the ones who aren't hidden behind those icons. And, we really are Juno, we really are a team of people. We, increasingly this year, we've been collaborating more together. So whether it's job sharing for a client because the client wants a full-time engagement and two of our lawyers together have supported it, because we might want someone who's got an ICT background, but also someone who's got, a more senior GC or a commercial background. And so we're sort of slicing and dicing work much more and working much more as a team, backing each other up, peer reviewing work, sharing, etc. One thing I'm really hot on, and I'm just going to play that again and try and move off it. One thing I'm really hot on is this idea that flexibility is not about women and it's not about childcare. Juno is the Roman goddess of family, but she's also the special counsellor and the protector of the state. So we've got 6 male and 17 female lawyers, and there's a lot of reasons to work flexibly. Childcare is one of them, but we've got people who've got their own side hustle. They might be building apps. One of our young male lawyers has got his own craft drinking vinegar business. We've got a yoga instructor, 2 authors. Our newest lawyer on board has got a flower shop that she runs with her sister. So for me, it's about what are the passions and interests that each person brings every day, and what is it that they want to balance with their legal career. So, you're a lawyer and what else are you, rather than it being exclusively about being a lawyer and not having room in your life for everything else. I compare that with some stories I've heard recently. For example, a big firm had a really talented young lawyer, but at the weekends he ran a food truck with his partner, and that made him happy as well as his legal career. And the firm saw him as really bright and talented, but when he came to them and he said, look, the food truck's doing really well, I need to take Fridays off and work 4 days a week in law, and then 3 days a week I've got to work on my other business, which also brings me joy. And the partners around the table just couldn't see that as a viable solution. And they said, no, it wasn't going to work for them. So he actually quit. And so that firm lost a great, talented lawyer. And he decided that's just the way he wanted to live his life. So again, this is our team, this is our people. The bottom right picture is at our recent team session. We were actually engaged in a bit of team singing, unbelievably. One of our new lawyers also runs a business and charitable enterprise, taking singing out into the community. We believe really strongly in the power of no, and it took me a while to learn this. I'm still learning it for myself, but really we say no to the work that doesn't best suit us, that we're not best at delivering. And I think when we can say no, then there's no point in us having values as a firm and really believing in flexibility if we continue to say yes to work that's going to overload our lawyers. It's just not going to be consistent. So yeah, we're really relaxed about saying no when we need to. In terms of being client-centric, because obviously we also want to deliver the very best to our clients, this is just a couple of examples from clients of ours who take a very different role. I'm always challenged to see that law firms, I think law firms still see themselves as service givers and price givers. But the reality is, when my plumber or someone else that I'm getting a service from can tell me what it's going to cost, when it's going to be delivered, and exactly what the scope of work is, and all that my lawyer can tell me is how much they're going to charge per hour, that's just not customer friendly. It's just not going to cut it, particularly not in the year 2020. And so in terms of other businesses, we see them taking very much an education and sharing approach. So this is one of our clients, Sharesies, who's also operating in Australia now as well. They provide a market update called Lunch Money. It's about educating the market, educating not just their customers, but the market more broadly. And they have a much bigger purpose about, having a financially literate community in New Zealand. Another one of our clients is Dyson, and really seeing the way that they apply innovation to understand and to really stand in their customers' shoes and work out what is it as a customer that you want. So obviously, I have a Dyson vacuum cleaner, I have a Dyson hairdryer, and really can see that innovation in action. So for me, it's about, as a legal services provider, how can we take the lessons from our clients and adopt them for ourselves? So, one of the ways that we want to do that, I think I said before, is about being really generous and being really open with our community. And so one of the projects we've worked on this year, 3 of our lawyers whose client work really fell off a cliff at the first lockdown because they were doing work with clients who, were in severe crisis. And we took the right approach and decided not to hold them to their commitments. Those lawyers then came and worked on our clause bank and developing a resource library, and not just for our clients. We've shared that openly with the in-house legal profession, and that's been really well received. I think the idea that lawyers sell knowledge is a really old idea. I think lawyers, knowledge is approaching free. I think Google's taught us all that. I think what lawyers do is they deliver solutions to complex problems. The knowledge is just the gateway to help us do that. And I think in the UK, where you've got competing banks who partner together to co-source legal advice, we really need to push in that direction and be far more sophisticated purchasers of legal services. I think marketing's an interesting one. I think lawyers are good at marketing what they think they're selling, but perhaps not what clients actually want from us. The other thing that we do is we share stories of success from across the in-house legal profession. So each month we put out a newsletter and we profile different teams, different initiatives, great things that we've learned or resources that we've developed, and that's really picked up a great following. And yeah, I'm still, I guess, amazed when we talk to people, whether they're in-house lawyers or private practitioners who don't have a LinkedIn profile and really aren't very active in that space. Because for me, it is really about building a community. And for us, our clients know when they need something, we will likely be there to help them, but we don't do sales. We don't, we certainly don't throw that at them. The other thing, when I started out, or when we started out, as everyone knows, starting a new business, you are hustling all the time. And I used to offer to write articles or offer to speak at conferences. And I'm actually amazed, a lot of the legal publications and business publications, if you turn up with a content-rich, well-written article that's kind of copy ready, they're more than happy to publish it. So that was a really great way for us to build some traction. In terms of us, we have a very simple kind of client commitment or our terms of engagement. One of our clients is the consumer watchdog in New Zealand, Consumer New Zealand, and they've complimented us on it being very straightforward, very easy to read, hopefully written in plain English. The other thing we try and do is also always notice and thank people who refer us or who give us work, and so always sending small gifts or tokens or even just a letter to say thank you. I think thank you really does help in building a community. I really like the saying, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. The most useful skills that I've learned in leading Juno, I've never learned in the legal profession, or even when I was in-house in large companies. When I was heading up ILANS, we ran an annual conference every year. So those of you in New Zealand or Australia who, when you've got 350 lawyers in a room, it really is like herding cats in the dark, as you can imagine. And what I really saw is the gifts that professional conference organisers brought to the table in terms of amazing communication skills and being super organised, always following up, always backing up, always confirming, full run sheets. That level of discipline and detail has actually been the best training ground for me in running Juno, and really helped me, because I think for me, when our clients come to us, if I probe behind it, being a general counsel is an incredibly busy and demanding role. What they're actually asking us for is some support, some encouragement, some hand-holding to say, I've got a problem, will you share that problem with me? And if I don't get back to them in a very short window of time and I leave them hanging, I'm not doing my job for them. Even if it's a fast no, we can't help you, no, we don't have that capacity, that's still giving them the comfort that they need to keep looking. So for me, it's sort of building that deep trust that they know I'll always be there, I'll always have their back. People often ask me what our kind of overarching plan or strategy is. It would be fair to say we don't have one. It's an evolving market. It's still a very new market in New Zealand and throughout Australasia. So we see it more as a 90-day sort of iterative roadmap, and that makes us much more agile, being able to kind of work out, are we delivering what clients want? And if not, what do we need to do? Similarly, we don't have financial targets. None of our lawyers have budgets. We really think if we build a great team and we build a fantastic set of clients, then the rest of it will look after itself. And generally that's what's happened. Because our lawyers tend to be time poor, like all lawyers are, and our legal professionals are, instead of having a pro bono program where we give time, we give a percentage of our net profits to a range of charities that are supported by our lawyers. So I guess for me, Terry's asked me to have a think about some of the lessons that I'd share. I guess for me, one of them is about being very clear what it is that you offer and what you don't. We're not trying to be full service. We're not trying to offer everything for the market. We're really conscious that we operate really well in a particular zone. And, we'll continue to test that, particularly as we keep getting asked to do different things. We'll never completely say no, but we'll always make sure that it meets all of our criteria and that we feel that we're the best solution for the client as well. I guess the other thing for me is I really think it's important to involve your whole team in terms of making decisions. I'm not a big fan of hierarchy anyway, but I think, engaging people in creative thinking is a great way of getting lawyers to think in the sort of ways that our clients want us to think in. When I ran ILANS, I used to deal with the CEOs of law firms and their marketing departments, and they'd be tearing their hair out because everyone wanted to dabble. And they, the partnership board would be saying, we don't like the brand, we don't like this, we want a medal, we want to have a say in the catering. So I'm really a big believer in bringing in specialists to do what they do and listening to them and not trying to meddle. So, if we bring someone in to do some work for us, then I'll listen to that person because I'll be confident I've chosen the right person. The other thing Terri asked me to share is sort of a little bit about how to kind of really understand what it is that clients are facing. And for me, you know, I know it's a bit of a cliche again, but that whole idea of pain points, what is it? What's the pain that the service that we deliver alleviates? So we spend quite a bit of time on drilling down on that. When we launched Juno, I sort of in that pre-phase of research, I spent about 3 months interviewing CEOs, general counsel, chief legal advisors in the public sector, saying, if we build this fantastic team of in-house lawyers, what are the sort of services that you might want and need? And, you know, some of the services that we provide, like some of our senior GCs coach new GCs, or we do a lot of team facilitation. I probably wouldn't have thought that was something needed in the market, but there was a real gap. Again, delivering what we say we'll do when we say we'll do it is really key. And that final one about communication, being crystal clear about what it is that we can do and what not. Like everyone, there are always challenges, of course. For me, the things that keep me awake at night, some of it is about educating people about what we don't do as much as what we do. You know, we're not a body shop. That's not our model. We don't have a pool of people sitting out there waiting to call on. You know, we're building a tight team of specialists and of senior in-house lawyers. So for us, it's about keeping our team close and not having a pool or a body shop to call on. We are not in recruitment. We don't pull people in to fill gaps. We're much more targeted than that. And so some of it's about just helping instruct people what it is that we're there to do. We love our clients, of course, all of them, but sometimes they're not really attuned to the dynamics in which we operate. And so we might put out a proposal of how we can support a team, and because of their internal dialogue, it might be a week or two before they come back to us to say, yes, that's the great solution for us. We'd love to accept it. Unfortunately, by then we've probably had another 10 requests from other teams to support them. I think people can forget how dynamic the world that we all operate in is, and how much kind of, you know, senior legal resource, how valued it is. One thing that I do worry about is I'm conscious, because we only have people 10 years plus PQE, we're not doing anything to grow the junior legal profession. And that really worries me. I get approached a lot by junior lawyers who may be unhappy in the roles that they're in large law firms. And it does concern me that we're not doing anything to help and grow them. So that's certainly on my mind as we head into the summer break. What are the, you know, how is it that we're actually going to play our part? And I do think it's a responsibility across the profession. How are we going to play our part in developing and bringing through junior lawyers? Our recruitment process also has been fairly organic. We get approached by people who know what sort of team we're trying to build and want to be a part of that, which has worked really well. It's enabled us to, you know, build a fantastic team. The only problem with it is, even though we've got a lot of invisible diversity in our team, the team that we currently have doesn't reflect the face of New Zealand in the way it needs to. So we want it to be more representative, and are looking at ways that we can encourage that and make sure that we're attracting a really broad range of people to work with us. Something else that makes me laugh, a lot of people tell me that I don't really practice law anymore, which I find quite amusing. And I really worry that our profession takes a narrow view of what a lawyer does and is. If you look at the big four consulting, or as they used to be called, accounting firms, you know, no one tries to put accountants in a box anymore and say that they just provide accounting services. And I worry that lawyers are still so focused on providing legal services that they don't see that actually clients have moved on, clients have got complex problems that legal solutions can help them to reach, but clients aren't necessarily thinking in terms of disciplines. So I really want lawyers to broaden their horizons and have a much wider view of what they do. I know regulatory regimes can make that quite tricky, and I think we're going to need to address that as the profession moves forward. But I do think that instead of lawyers worrying about market share amongst themselves, we should really be out there looking at what the consultants are doing and taking our ground and sort of holding our space, because I think we have a huge amount to offer, much more generally just than legal services. The other thing I'm really conscious of as well is, it's really nice that we've been recognised in some ways in terms of innovation or disruption or whatever you want to call it. But, let's be honest, it's still pretty mild in that space. We haven't done anything outrageously innovative. And so I do think that there's still that incredible push. There will be, whether it's a killer app or a way that we work differently. And so I do think as a profession, we need to push much more in that direction. I think we still feel like we're just, maybe a better breed of horse rather than necessarily having invented a car and pushing in that direction. So look, that's all I had in terms of wanting to share, and I'd love to have some great in-depth questions. For me, I guess I'm the CEO of our law firm. I do business development. I do a lot of public speaking to the profession about how to make it more egalitarian, how to make sure it's accessible across a wide range of people and it doesn't leave anyone behind. And really my key focus on how to make sure that our lawyers really lead happier lives. So Terri, if I can invite you to see if there's any questions that have come in about what we do.
Absolutely, and thank you very much. It's just fabulous to hear the Juno legal story, actually. And folks, do drop the questions in at the bottom of the screen there where the Q&A bubbles are. But Helen, why folks are thinking about that, I've got a few, if I may, kind of in a way about the business model, but also, also about how you keep that fresh. Firstly, in relation to the business model, you mentioned that you don't have financial targets, and I guess for folks that are listening or others who will listen to this afterwards and maybe perhaps slightly more in a traditional law firm mode, I guess the question that may arise is this: how do you know whether or not you're going to be able to keep the doors open? If you, to the extent that they're doors, and I'm thinking virtual doors here, not just, regular doors, but how do you know you're going to be able to do that if you don't, for example, have that as a metric, I guess?
Well, I mean, the reality is, we do operate a gig economy model, and we're really upfront about that. So, for anyone who doesn't know what that means, because of the regulatory environment in New Zealand, lawyers can't be contractors. So we employ all of our lawyers, but it's effectively on a contract model basis, which both gives them the freedom that if they want to take a 3-month sabbatical, they can, but it also gives us the freedom to know, and I know that this is a privilege and it's not one shared by traditional law firms, if 2020 had gone really badly, which it thankfully and very gratefully hasn't in New Zealand, we run a very lean operating model. We know that as long as our lawyers are engaged and, we have that certain volume of work, then we can continue to support them and support our clients. So it is a very different way of operating. I know that traditional law firms have a huge fixed overhead, which is based on human resources. That's the biggest cost of any professional services organisation. I do know that a lot of the bigger law firms in New Zealand are looking at how to make sure they've got some fixed and variable operating costs around human resources. So they are much more willing now to pull in people on a needs basis rather than necessarily having them part of their core team. I think it's just the reality for how people need to work. And it's not that they're not the best people, it's just that some people want to work in different ways. And really love that freedom and flexibility of essentially being a contractor.
And I guess the other big cost has been premises, right? And that's certainly been turned upside down this year, if not before. So I guess that model, or almost a virtual working model, although I appreciate that you have physical places where you get together as well, is an important part of that too.
Yeah, and it's been really interesting how that's developed throughout this year. So, prior to March, almost all of our clients would say to me, we really need that visibility and face time with the Juno lawyer who's going to be in our team. And, in some of our bigger cities, or particularly Auckland, you've got really geographically diverse, from where people live to where they work is really spread out, particularly when you get into the more industrial and manufacturing clients. No one really wants to spend 2 hours in a car every day. And so that fixed mindset, I think, has really shifted now. And what we find is the GC might say, look, actually, if they could come out once or twice a week for core days and for our team meetings, but the other 2 or 3 days of the week could be operating from, either a shared workspace or from home or wherever is going to suit them, depending on their needs for collegiality. I think all of us, it feels like we've made about 5 years of progress in 3 months. And I know everyone says that, but it really does feel like that. I mean, for me, our headquarters based in Wellington, our HQ team of our practice manager, our administrator and me are based here, but often the Wellington team are coming and going, and using the meeting rooms and catching up. So it's pretty dynamic, but again, it's a much smaller footprint than needing an office for every lawyer and a marble lobby. So, I'm always slightly bemused by that, because I always think clients seem to have missed the fact that they pay for that, those large footprints. And I know a lot of the big firms are actually revisiting that, whether they need the sort of footprint that they had going into the lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've definitely, I think, now redefined the way that we work, quite possibly. Well, in fact, I'm sure also the work that we actually do. But I mean, I imagine that agility that you've built into your business model, and I think you mentioned, for example, and I'm going to paraphrase this hopefully accurately, the 90-day strategy check-in versus, it just seems impossible to be thinking in terms of 5 or 10 years now. But that must have helped you, not just in the position that we've found ourselves in, which I hate to continue to use this word, but is unprecedented, right? But just as a business model generally, 2020, if you like, to one side, that's got to help with that. Is that a fair comment?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, look, that doesn't mean that, March the 25th or whatever the date was, was still a time of extreme panic.
Sure.
When you can start seeing what's happening, no matter how agile you are, you still don't have a crystal ball. But for us, I guess it meant that, we could sort of wait out that period and be really confident that we were keeping close to our clients. We did a lot of education in that time. We did a lot of webinars and really just checked in with our clients. What is it that they were wanting to hear? For a lot of it, I think they wanted the connection. I mean, we tend to be a good connector between different in-house legal teams. Often we see what's happening, we've got a bit of a helicopter view across the profession in New Zealand, and we have the ability to say, look, actually, why don't you go and talk to that team? I know they've got a similar challenge. And in terms of coming out, I think the demand for the sort of service we offer has only grown as the uncertainty, I guess, has continued. My husband's a currency trader, which means I'd wake up with the voice of doom beside me every morning, literally. And he keeps reminding me that, the fact that the market's holding up, the fact that the economy's holding up may be a bubble that is going to burst. And so, I'm really conscious that for us, it's not about, we don't have a growth strategy. Organic growth is fine, but we have absolutely no wish to grow beyond which, we want to grow our community and our market, our client market, much faster than we grow our team, to make sure that even though it's that gig economy model, we are still giving people the level of security and certainty that they want, because I think it would be irresponsible otherwise for me not to.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got another question about the power of no. And I'm going to go just for the business part of the power of no for a sec. And I guess the thing that, more often than not worries people about that is that when they say no, there won't be any more yeses. And so I'm, just wondering if we might explore that and just get your thoughts a little bit more on that. Was when you say no, is there an immediate panic? Or was there? And is there now kind of that's okay? But how, you know what I'm saying, right? How do you get over that panic that probably sets in for most people when they say no?
I guess I see it a bit like a muscle. So it's not one, when you're starting out a business, of course you say yes to everything. but for me, it was about figuring out, what did I want to be doing? How did I want to be spending my time? What gives me energy? What depletes my energy? And then really testing with each of our lawyers and each of our team members, what's the work you want to be doing? What's the mix of work, the client, the industry? But also I'm really conscious, I had a lovely young person contact me the other day. He's invented something that's going to kill Uber, and it's going to be the next great thing. And, he's at the very early stage in his startup, which just was fantastic. And I could put him in touch with a couple of people who can guide him and shepherd him through. But that's not us. That's not the service that we provide. Early stage startups need a very, very different skill set. We're much more a subscription model. So you have to have a certain size and scale to need to be able to subscribe for a certain volume of legal services. And the fact that we have a subscription model is what allows us to give our lawyers certainty. Because, for me, it is about helping our lawyers build that lifestyle. And if we said yes to everything, that would mean that they got overloaded, then I've broken my promise to them as well, because I've allowed their lives to get off kilter. And lawyers are terrible at saying no. A couple of our lawyers, if they're watching this, I'm looking at you, because what happens is some of our lawyers, and it's very much up to them how they want to shape their portfolio, they might end up doing some embedded work, but then also some managed legal service, some consultancy for another client. And that variety is really fantastic and really interesting. But it's when all those deadlines converge and you suddenly realise perhaps we should have spaced it out, or even just said no, even to some good work. We can't do everything.
But at the core of that, Helen, seems to be that you know very strongly what you are and what you're not. And while your business may evolve organically, maybe even in time in other directions, that is something that you're very conscious of, coming from that foundation of being able to say yes and no. Is that a fair comment as well?
Yeah, it is, but it's not an individual. It's not an individual thing. Remember, we are a collective.
Yeah.
And so, I'll often take the temperature across the team, and something will come up or something will come in, and I'll sort of take the temperature and say, do we want to do this? Is this work we want to do? And test it with a few or as many as we need. And so I feel like kind of together we're shaping that path. It's not me saying yes or no, because we're really building that. If it's truly an egalitarian and democratic team, then everyone needs to have a say in that. And look, someone might want to work 100 hours a week and do a major transaction, and good luck to them. If they want to do that, it's probably not something that is dear to my heart. But I'm certainly happy to help people find what it is that they want to do through Juno.
But it seems also, that's very contrary to the very traditional law firm model, if I can express it this way, where in fact not all ideas are equal. Sounds a little bit Animal Farmish now, right? Some ideas are better than other ideas, which to me was kind of an environment, and having myself lived through that environment, which just crushes innovation versus, the sort of, I guess, culture in a way that you're really developing, which is everybody's had great ideas. We can't pursue them all maybe, but everyone's got great ideas, and we want to hear them from you. How do you see, on a day-to-day basis, that impacting things like your culture, your level of engagement and your productivity by just having that more, I'm going to call it, diverse and inclusive environment?
I think for me it's probably also about contrasting it with what the alternative would be. With 23 in our team now, if I want to live the sort of life that I want to live, then I need to share that decision making and that collective responsibility, because it both takes a load off me, but it also, as you say, allows people to access their own interests and passions and kind of flex those different muscles that they have. I mean, I think lawyers, the more that we can develop our creative thinking ability and, whatever space it's in, whether it's in business development or marketing or IT development, the more that we can do that, the more valuable we are to the businesses that we serve. So I kind of think it's a win on both sides, and it certainly makes my job a lot easier.
And how often, building on that, do you folks kind of check in? Is it and I'm kind of thinking there about where you're having I'm going to call it the brainstorming kind of sessions. Is that like every month, every week, every 3 months? How does that work for you?
So we use Microsoft, we use the whole Office 365 platform. And so we found, particularly during this year, Microsoft Teams has been fantastic. Yeah. And so the ideal, and let's be honest, it doesn't always happen, but the ideal is that we'll have that kind of broader, I won't call it a strategy session, but that we call it an ideas storm. That ideas storm idea will happen sort of every 3 months. Every month or so, we'll have a Teams call together, and whether it's a learning or a sharing session with someone leading, for example, the new Privacy Act in New Zealand, or whether it's just a going around the table peer-to-peer session. We're on Microsoft Teams chats daily, whether it's looking for precedents and templates. We had something come in last night that I didn't think we could help, but I just wanted to check. It was quite an interesting piece of work from a consulate, and I just thought, just in case that tickles someone's fancy, it's something they've always wanted to do, let's put it out there. And I find so people are really engaging in terms of those channels. And look, the technology supports kind of distributed workforces these days. I mean, a lot of law firms, I'm always amazed when I speak to law firms that have got offices in different locations, and you're almost introducing people to each other, and they've never actually met or had that connection. So,
True.
I think it's a challenge, even if you're in office-based working, if you've got different offices that are spread out, how do you get that collaboration going? And again, it's how do you incentivize it? How do you reward it? How do you bake it into your culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got one more question for you, and it's around kind of this area of purchasing legal services and how that's changing, and you touched on this in your presentation. But I guess I'm drawing in this question, or drawing out of you in this question, I hope, your experiences in house counsel, now kind of sitting there, but also sitting differently as well. How are you seeing clients kind of approaching the purchasing decision, I guess? And by that, I mean, who's involved in it, what's important to them, and I guess beyond just the certainty of price that you'd spoken about, because we hear a lot about procurement officers being involved in companies now, or, a whole bunch of different things. How are you finding that bundle or package looking now?
Look, and that's a really good question. I should make it really clear that we don't get involved in procurement decisions for in-house teams. So we get asked to do it. But again, that's one of the things we decided didn't give us energy, and we didn't want to be involved in doing RFPs. I mean, obviously, some of our lawyers sit as general counsel inside organisations, so they will be doing it, but as the in-house lawyer, not as a consultant coming in.
Yep.
I guess for me, what I see and where I see relationships really grow and flourish, this whole idea of building trust and building deep trust. I think the idea of relationship building has never been more important. And sometimes when I'm doing a review of an in-house legal function, I will see examples where an external firm really has pushed it too far. Perhaps the client may not have been the most sophisticated purchaser of legal services, but I know that the deal that they've been given is not a great deal. And, obviously I'll uncover that in the work I do and bring it to the client's attention, but I don't do anything with it. But I always think how incredibly short-sighted that is. that just to get your budget in on that particular week, month, year, you've actually sacrificed a longer term relationship with a client. And so I think the relationships and the clients that I see who really rely on their external lawyers are the ones that truly see it as a partnership model. And it has to benefit both sides. I had a conversation with one of our clients a bit earlier who's going through a large issue. And they were talking about the partnership that they've got with their external firm as well as with our lawyer and how seamlessly it's working. And for me, that kind of represents success. And I think having that long-term view of building that relationship and really cherishing it, and continually looking to ways of providing additional value into that relationship. I was always amazed when I was a general counsel, if I was working on a project, you'd get to know, say, the senior associate at a large firm, you'd be in the trenches with them, day after day, night after night. And I was always amazed that the deal would finish and literally I wouldn't hear from that person again. I'd be thinking, but, we were talking about our children and our families and we really got to know each other. And I always think that ability for lawyers to think, actually, I'm going to keep picking up the phone, I'm going to keep checking in, and just seeing it as a genuine relationship, not just a business relationship, is really important. Get to know that person on a human level.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great point that you make. It's not really about pricing, it's about the relationship first, and that's just one factor of many kind of to consider. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. When I was in private practice, the thing that I was always really conscious of, that the last communication from me with the client can't be to send the bill. It just can't. It's just, that's not a good way to kind of to end. So, and unfortunately we have to end. But Helen, I wanted to thank you again. It's always a pleasure spending the time with you. And I said at the beginning and say again, this is certainly no exception. We're delighted and thankful for the fact that Juno Legal exists, but also that you shared that story with us. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks so much, Terri.
This ends the series for this year, folks. And what a great way to end, Helen. Thank you again. And we will pick it up again in January. Thank you very much, everyone who's here today, and to those that have been a part of making this series a success. It's really been embraced incredibly well. So thank you for that. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter, because you'll get lots of great information about obviously when this particular session is available, but also others in this series. So again, Helen, thank you. Again, everyone, thank you for attending. And from all of us to you and your families, we wish you a safe, joyful and peaceful holiday season. Thanks very much, folks.